Fifth and sixth graders. Today, right now, I would like to go through your social studies lesson for September 14th, 2021. We are going to be finishing our maps that we started last week. We're going to finish labeling them so that you can have them to study for your Wisconsin map test. It would be nice if you had a blue, a brown, and a green colored pencil in order to do this. If you do not, don't worry about it. You can take care of that when you get back to school on Wednesday. However, I do want you to write the names of the places as neatly as possible on the map. The nice thing about the fact that this lesson needs to be recorded is that when I am moving along, if I go too fast for you, you can go ahead and pause it and you can make sure that you have all of your spelling correctly and are able to do your very best job so that it is as helpful as possible for you when you are studying the Wisconsin map. So let me get my screen shared because, as you notice, that paper map does not show up very well. So it's just going to be easier for me to go ahead and use the map that I was using before anyway. So the first thing that we did when we were working together was filled in the compass rose, and we marked north, south, west, and east on the compass rose. And then we labeled the 4 states that border Wisconsin: Michigan, Minnesota, Iowa, and Illinois. Then we went ahead and labeled the 2 Great Lakes that border Wisconsin: Lake Superior to the north and Lake Michigan to the east. Now we're going to go ahead and take our blue colored pencil and we're going to fill in the Wisconsin River. So the Wisconsin River is known as a tributary, and a tributary is a small body of water that empties into a larger body of water. So the Wisconsin River starts up in the north woods of Wisconsin, right along the Michigan border. Did I say that right? The Michigan border. And it flows through Wisconsin, and right about here, it forms something called the Dells. You hearing me? The Wisconsin Dells, right? So it forms the Wisconsin Dells, and then it goes all the way down to this river right here that we're going to label next. But before I do that, I do want to say that the Wisconsin River is 430 miles long. It is the longest river in the interior of Wisconsin, and that is why we are labeling it and want to know where it is. All right, so we're going to label the Mississippi River next. And the Mississippi River, you will notice when you look at your map, there's a very faint line for you to trace, and it goes into Minnesota. Make sure that you do go into Minnesota when you are tracing the Mississippi River, because the Mississippi River begins in Minnesota at Lake Itasca. I pronounce it wrong every time, so I have to make sure we're reading it so I don't pronounce it wrong. Lake Itasca. And then it flows and forms the western border of Wisconsin, flows all the way through the entire United States, south of Wisconsin, and it goes into the Gulf of Mexico, flows into the Gulf of Mexico. It in itself is also a tributary. So the Wisconsin River is a tributary to the Mississippi River, and the Mississippi River is a tributary into the Gulf of Mexico. Did you learn something? Good. So the Mississippi River is the second longest river in the United States. And as I already said, it begins in Lake Itasca. It is sometimes called Old Man River or the Great River. It is it was very, very important, and it's still important today, but was very important in the fur trade, the French fur trade. And there are many, 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 many references to the Mississippi River in different songs, in different stories. Mark Twain, who wrote The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, talks a lot about the Mississippi River in his writing because he lived near the Mississippi River. The next river, the last river that we're going to label is the Fox River. The Fox River, you probably have heard of, and that is the river that goes through Wrightstown. So it's a little bit harder to trace because there's other stuff that we're going to label on it. So just go ahead and as best as you can, trace over the Fox River, where you see it on your map. The Fox River starts in Pardeeville, which sounds a lot more fun than it is. It's actually spelled P-A-R-D-E-E, not party. And it's still pretty fun, I hear. I have a friend that lives there. And then it empties into Lake Winnebago and starts over again in Lake Winnebago, going through Wrightstown, through Green Bay, and empties into the Bay of Green Bay. It also was very important in the fur trade. And it goes through our city, which is why we are labeling it. All right, the next thing that we're going to label is the lake that we need to know the location of, and that is Lake Winnebago. Lake Winnebago is the largest lake in Wisconsin. It was actually made by glaciers. So what would happen is the ice from the glaciers would prevent water from flowing into the Bay of Green Bay, and it just formed this lake. So that's why we're going to label it. It is the largest lake in the state. And fun fact that I don't know if it's true, but some people think that Dr. Seuss was inspired by Lake Winnebago when he wrote the book Thidwick, the Big-Hearted Moose, because the moose lives in Lake Winnebago on the northern shore. So maybe, but there are no moose in Wisconsin near us. So kind of doesn't lead towards that being a true story, but you know, fun to think about, right? The next thing that we're going to talk about is the highest peak in Wisconsin. So I want you to take your brown colored pencil, if you have your brown colored pencil, you're going to go ahead and you're going to label Timms Hill. Timms Hill is the highest natural point in Wisconsin. It is 1,951.5 feet high. It has an elevation of 1,951.5 feet. That's the proper way to say it. It has at the top of it, it has a taller tower even, and that you can look out over the state. It's kind of cool from what it sounds like. And I really remember stopping at some big hill when I was younger and went up north for vacation and going up a lookout tower. I really think that I might have been on Timms Hill, but maybe not. I'll have to ask my mom about that one. I keep forgetting to ask. So we are labeling Timms Hill, and we want to remember where it is because it is the highest natural point in Wisconsin. Next, we're going to label some cities. The first one we're going to label is good old Wrightstown. And we're labeling this because this is where we live, and you should know where it is on a map, right? So you will notice that there is a little starburst there that you can fill out. If you want to just draw a dot, you can do that. As you can see, I'm looking for green when you label that. So if you're just doing a dot, green. If you're coloring in the starburst, carefully, green. And Wrightstown. There you go. You'll notice that it is smaller than the starburst that is directly above it, and that is Green Bay. The reason I made Green Bay bigger, you probably can guess, is that Wrightstown is a lot smaller than Green Bay. Green Bay is, of course, the home of the most famous sports team, or one of the most famous sports teams to come from Wisconsin, and that is the Green Bay Packers. Whether you love them or hate them, they belong to us, right? It is the third largest city in the state of Wisconsin, and it was very, very important in the French fur trade in Wisconsin history. So that is why it is important for you to know where Green Bay is. That shouldn't be too difficult for you. You're all pretty smart and you live here. Then what I did is I chose a city in the north, a city in the west, a city in the south, and the capital. So let's keep going. The Superior is the city that I chose for the north. It is the biggest city in northern Wisconsin, I believe. It is one of the most important port cities in northern Wisconsin. It was really important for Canadian and United States trade. It worked really hard with its sister city Duluth over here in Minnesota, but Superior in and of itself is a pretty important port city, water city in Wisconsin. So that's one that we want to label in our map. It is storming outside right now. Not really storming, it's at least raining. So if I keep on looking over there, that is why I am really trying to not hurry, but get this done so that I can go home. All right, next we have Milwaukee. Milwaukee is the southern city that I chose. It is, of course, a little bit southeast, but I chose it because it is the largest city in the state of Wisconsin. It is the most ethnically and culturally diverse city in the state of Wisconsin, and one of the most ethnically and culturally diverse places in the United States. So it is really an important city in our state. You will find it along the shore of Lake Michigan. It's also very important in the fur trade, or was important in the fur trade. Next, we have, that was very loud, I'm so sorry. Next, we have Eau Claire. And I chose Eau Claire as the western city because that's where I went to college. It is also, it's also the largest city in western Wisconsin. It is, it's partly in two different counties, but it is the capital of Eau Claire County, and it's also in Chippewa County. But most of Eau Claire is in Eau Claire County, and it is the capital of, it's called the county seat, is the capital city of the county. And finally, we're going to label one more city, and you would think that I would have chosen that for the southern city, but I didn't, because it is the capital. You can go ahead and you can make it green with the big starburst. I made the starburst big just because it is the capital, but it is actually smaller than Milwaukee. Not a lot smaller, but definitely smaller than Milwaukee. It is the second largest city in Wisconsin. It is the capital of Wisconsin. So we need to remember it as the capital, and we need to know, we want to know where it is. If you fill this out green, I will be giving you a star sticker when you get here on Wednesday, so that you will have that visual of it being the capital. So that is the last thing that we are labeling on our Wisconsin map. So I hope that you will be able to study those and be well versed in where all of these places are on the state in the state of Wisconsin. Bye. Still here. Bye.